Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Agape and Satori. You're listening to Truebook Radio. Today we have a very special person with us, Max Igan. Max Igan has been internationally known researcher, radio host, and filmmaker, and I'm very glad that we can welcome Max on our show today. And we have so many things to cover, so I just want to jump straight into the interview. So good day to you, Max.
Pleasure to be here, Agape. Thanks for having me on the show.
So, Max, I would like to start with a little bit of introduction because I know some people probably heard about you but don't know very much about what you do. So if you could elaborate on that.
Well, basically I'm a radio host at the moment, which is kind of amazing in itself that happened. I never really planned to be a radio host, but here I am. I'm a filmmaker. I've spent most of my life actually as a touring musician, so I've got to live on the outside of society through most of my life, which has been kind of a good thing. And it's given me a very unique perspective of society, so I'm very fortunate in that. It's also allowed me to travel extensively, so I've got to research a lot of different places, and so it's been kind of good. And it's weird when you look back and you realise that everything you've done has led perfectly to the point you are now at, and that all the things that you did during your life all finally have a purpose, because most of them didn't really seem like they had much of a purpose at the time, but where I find myself now, it's fortunate that I did the things that I did do, or I wouldn't have the knowledge that I have now to be able to do the things I do now. So it's been quite good, actually. So basically I just spent my life playing and touring and researching. I spent a lot of time researching ancient history and things like that, and then I saw things going on in the world that, well, they weren't really to the benefit of humankind, and I thought that it would be a good time to actually start speaking out about it. So I started making the films, and I put them up on YouTube, not really thinking anyone would look at them, but suddenly found myself inundated with emails and letters and offers for interviews, and ended up landing a job as a radio show host just because of the films that I put on YouTube. And as I said, I honestly didn't think anyone would even watch them when I first put them up there, but I was very much mistaken. So here I am, just from basically doing that. One thing I am, though, is a normal, everyday person, and that, I think, is the beauty of it all, is the fact that I'm actual proofs that you don't have to be somebody, in inverted commas, to make a difference. You just have to be willing to speak out. And if you are willing to speak out, you'll very likely find that there are other people out there that are willing to listen, so that's a good thing for anybody to look at as well.
Yeah, today I would like to speak about, more about the world events, because we all kind of feel that something is happening to the planet, something is happening with the environment, something is happening with society. We all know that something is happening with the economy, but I don't want to really focus on economy today. So I'm not sure if you've heard about, that we had in August, in a matter of like 4 days, we had millions and millions of animals dying all around the planet. We also know that, the amount of earthquakes is starting to be quite frequent, and we have volcanic activity all around the planet. So what do you think is actually happening?
Oh, look, there's some pretty amazing things going on. I mean, the world that we live in now, it almost seems that apocalyptic catastrophes are inevitable. It really does seem that way sometimes when you look around. But I don't know if such is the case. I think that we are heading for changes, whether they be physical or psychological or spiritual. I really do think we are heading for changes. I think the Earth is evolving. I think that humanity is evolving with it, and I think that what actually evolves when all is said and done is consciousness. It's a very deep rabbit hole actually to get into. My personal view anyway on what the changes that we're seeing manifest with the planet and the human species is. I actually believe that it's an evolution of consciousness that's taking place. A lot of the work that I do, a lot of the films that I've made, a lot of the radio shows that I do, I talk a lot about energy. I look at anything and everything on an energetic level. And when you understand that all matter is condensed energy, and you understand that everything in the universe consists of this energy, that's all that actually exists, is pure conscious energy. And I think that it is this energy itself is actually evolving. And if you really look through history, you find that it evolves in regular, predictable cycles. It follows the Fibonacci sequence. If you look at the Schumann gravity resonance of the Earth, for example, you find that the Schumann cavity resonance has sat around 7 cycles for thousands and thousands of years. We've used this to set atomic clocks and to measure time itself. And you find now that the Schumann cavity resonance is rising, and it's rising in the predictable sequences outlined in the Fibonacci sequence. So I think that's what's happening. I think we're going to see lots of Earth changes. I think that's also what's causing the global awakening that's happening, whether you want to call it a political awakening or a social awakening or a spiritual awakening, whatever you want to call it. We are seeing a lot of people suddenly sort of coming to terms with the fact that everything isn't exactly the way they thought it was. They're sort of looking at the world and thinking, well, hang on, you know, I've been lied to all my life, or hang on, we shouldn't be in a state of poverty the way we are. We should be in a state of abundance, or just whatever. There's so many things happening within the human consciousness and within the human psyche at the moment. There is such a huge awakening happening. And it's not just because people like you and people like me, people like David Icke, Alex Jones, whoever, are speaking out about the criminals that are in charge of the planet. It's this awakening that's happening on all levels, and it's an energetic thing. You can almost feel it. So I think that really I think everything's as it should be, and I just think that everything and reality itself is in a state of evolution at the moment. I think that's what the whole 2012 date is about. I think that it's basically an evolution of consciousness, and I think the most important thing through this period is the state of the human consciousness. I think that's why a lot of the weird things are being done, why a lot of the esoteric things are being done to the world, why there's so much ritual going on. A lot of people talk about perhaps Luciferian forces that are in charge of the planet, evil forces, the Illuminati, whoever you want to call it. I think all of this is ritual. It's all about energy. The whole thing is about energy. I think it's trying to, it's an attempt to control the human consciousness through this transitional period. I think the state of the human consciousness through this period is the most important thing of all, and that's what a lot of my work focuses on.
Just for our listeners, the Schumann resonance is a vibratory resonance value of the planet. I don't remember the exact number. You might want to, if you know it, Max, you can say that. But basically what it is that, as we know, everything lets out some kind of like a vibration because atoms themselves are vibrating, and it vibrates on a certain energy or certain frequency. So this is the measurement of the frequency of the planet, and it has been steadily rising, as Max has stated, according to the Fibonacci sequence. So just to clear it out for you, so you know what it is, and you can definitely look it up on the internet. Just type in Schumann resonance, and you'll find what it is. So Max, since you're speaking about esoteric rituals, can we get into that? Like, what exactly do you mean?
Well, what you find is that when you start looking into the ruling elite, if you want to look at it that way, I mean, that's something I'd like to understand. I mean, that's something I'd really like to see people do, even when they're beginning to look at how the world is run at all. I'd really like people to understand that, understand the fact that our leaders are simply figureheads. Doesn't matter what country you're in. These are simply figureheads. They're corporate puppets doing the bidding of a corporate banking cartel that they work for. They're magicians, folks. They're magicians that are weaving you the illusion that you have a choice in things. But you don't, because everything is basically orchestrated. And when you really start looking at global events and main world-affecting events that happen, things like 9/11, things like the invasion of Iraq, the wars that go on, you find that all of these things are basically rituals. They're, for all intents and purposes, magic rituals, if you want to get into it that way. Basically, it's all about energy manipulation. All magic is, after all, is energy manipulation, whether it's black magic or white magic or however you want to look at it. It's all about energy. Everything is about energy. Even exchanges we have with people are about energy. You know, and this is a real energy. It really does work that way. We've all walked into a room, and you might walk in there and think, oh, I can cut the air in here with a knife because someone in the room is really angry. And you can feel that. It's an energy thing. So all these things that they do, all these main events are all energy rituals. For example, the invasion of Iraq, the most recent invasion of Iraq, the shock and awe campaign that happened in, what was it, 2005 or 2003? 2003, wasn't it? Yeah. But the actual ritual, it was a blood ritual, it was a blood sacrifice ritual. It actually began on a night known as Beltane, and it finished on Walpurgis night. And this is a night of Druidic ritual. It's a sacrifice by blood, a sacrifice by fire. And this happened at exactly the right time. The name of the campaign was Shock and Awe. And Shock and Awe is an ancient goddess of sacrifice. So you find that these things, most of the things they do are all rituals. They're all done on ritualistic dates. Even 9/11, the amount of symbolism attached to 9/11 is quite significant. Even the number 11, they love to use the number 11. You can go through and you can virtually predict all the things that they're going to do. And you can find that they always sign things. They always leave their signature on it in the name of a date or something like that. They'll do things on particular days. So that's something that people really should look at. And a lot of it is done to control the human experience, to control the human psyche, to control the human consciousness, to keep people in an energetic state of fear of terrorism, fear of all of these things. And even the soldiers that are involved in these rituals, you find they're all marked with occult symbolism and marked with sacrifice and things like that. Many people might not question why all soldiers from all different nations all have similar insignia on their uniform. Why would, for example, Russian soldiers and American soldiers both have oak leaves on their uniforms? Why would they both have red ribbons and 5-pointed stars? It's because these things are occult talismans. So they mark the soldiers with occult symbolism. They send them to designated places on Earth to perform sacrifice rituals on certain dates. And they always basically do it in plain view. As I said, calling the campaign Shock and Awe, when Shock and Awe was an ancient goddess of sacrifice, starting it on Beltane, finishing on Walpurgis night. A period of ancient Druidic sacrifice by fire. They go and firebomb Iraq. So you find that there's rituals in all of these things that they do.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, do you see any of the recent events that are happening? You know, I would like to a little bit later get into the whole thing about Iran, which is unfolding right now. But let's just hold that for a second. So, in the recent events, like for example, the BP oil spill, oil gusher, which they have, caused down there in the Gulf of Mexico, and we see that everybody, the general public, has been wore down, and no one is actually following that anymore, really, and they're not even reporting on it anymore in the mainstream media much. So, do you think that was a ritual as well? Do you see any of those patterns there?
Oh, it was very predictable that they'd do that. It's actually myself and a few other people were looking at certain events in the United States, and we were noticing that there was a pentangle being formed. If you look at events like between the Pentagon crash and 9/11, the World Trade Center, and you look at the space shuttle disaster in Waco and Katrina and things like this, you start drawing lines between them all. You find there's a pentangle being formed, and there was one arm of the pentangle, one point of the star, that was missing. And that was in the Gulf of Mexico. Mm. So in a radio show, I think it was early 2009, I mentioned that we would likely see an event in the Gulf of Mexico because that's what it's all shaping up to be. And here we go, a year later, we see this event in the Gulf of Mexico. But apart from that, they tried to get all of this extremely repressive legislation through in Copenhagen, and they failed miserably. Everybody found out what was actually going on with Copenhagen. They found out that it was all about handing control to the IMF, and all these countries pulled out. So they didn't manage to get any of their legislation through. But we didn't really think that they were going to go away with it, did we? Of course they're not. Of course they're going to try something else. And so right on cue, we have this oil gusher in the Gulf of